and then I give it over to you and you start, okay?
Okay.
Right. So, good afternoon and good morning, good evening, UMAC community anywhere in the world. It is my greatest pleasure to welcome you to the fourth webinar of our UMAC post-lockdown series, where every Friday in June 2020, we informally discuss one topic of relevance to university museums and collections, as so many of them across the world reopen to the public or are planning to, or possibly even reclose, as we were talking again. These are really uncertain times. And today's topic is lockdown lessons. What can we learn from online teaching and students? And some of the questions we want to address are, was your university museum or collection being used for teaching? Pre-COVID, that is. Were you teaching material culture or collections-based courses at graduate or postgraduate levels when the lockdown started? What were the challenges of moving object-based teaching online? Which platforms did you use? Did you create specific resources? How did students cope? How can we prepare for a future where online teaching appears to be more predominant? So we have 3 registered mini talks of 5 minutes to kick off our conversation. The first one is by Neil Curtis, University of Aberdeen, Catherine Eagleton, University of St. Andrews, and Susanna Waters from the Glasgow School of Art. And they will be speaking on behalf of 9 member museums of university museums in Scotland. Then we have Luz Miriam Gomez Piñeres from the Tecnológico de Antioquia, Medellín, Colombia. And then Carlos Fernandes, director of the Faraday Museum at Técnico University of Lisbon. So this webinar will be moderated by Kirsten Vincenz, director of the Office for Academic Heritage, Scientific and Art Collections of the Technical University Dresden since 2005, where UMAC will meet next year, August 2021, together with Vincenz, the European Academic Heritage Network. Kirsten has been since early 2002 responsible for the preservation and development of the university collections at TU Dresden. It's a delight to have you here. Thank you so much, Kirsten. And now over to you.
Well, thank you very much for having me as a moderator today. I'm really glad to actually be moderating this section because I think it's particularly interesting, I must say. So online teaching and students is our topic. So I think it would be really nice if you could all share your challenges and strategies. Marta already mentioned a lot of the questions, that are raised. But of course, there are way more than that, as you all know. There are technical problems, there are issues with rights of pictures. If you want to do online teaching, there are all different kinds of problems, especially at the Technical University. We had to switch over to online teaching within a month. So of course, everything has to be rushed and done. And so this is one thing. And of course, the other thing is, how would you actually transform your collection-based learning into the digital space? So it's about collections, of course. And I think there are many pros and cons for that. Maybe we can work some of those out. I think it would be really interesting to hear what really worked well for you, if you have any experience with that. And also maybe even if some things didn't work out, this is always helpful to work from things that did not work out, I think at least. So because this is about sharing, I think we can, talk freely about things that didn't work out that well. Also very important, I think, is students. So how did students deal with the situations? How did they cope with all of this? Did they do really well? I mean, they're all, generally younger people, digital natives, but it seems like it wasn't so easy for many of them, at least their experiences that we had. So maybe you have also experience there. it's also a matter of resources. In Germany, some of the students had problems just, to actually have access to internet, to, all the different things you need, computers, whatever. It might be the same in your countries. Would be good to hear how students actually dealt with the situation. And then last but not least, it would be interesting to talk about the future. Do you think that those things you worked out now or things you have been done already is really something you will do in the future as well? Maybe, hopefully there will be a time after COVID-19 and we can go back to normal, maybe, hopefully. And that some of those things you worked out now will actually transform into, your regular practice. So that would be something I'd be interested in, maybe the other people too. But now I talked enough and I would just give over to the first speaker today. Marta already introduced the two of you, Katie Eccleton and Neil Curtis from Scotland. So it's all yours.
Hello, I'll be starting off. Marta's just putting the slides up, I hope. I'm Katie Eggleton. I'm the Director of Museums at the University of St Andrews. And I'm here with Neil, but we're really talking on behalf of the University Museums in Scotland group, which is 9 different museums in 9 very different universities. So if we could have the next slide, please, Marta. So we're 9 accredited museums, which is the UK standard for museums. And 5 of us hold collections that are recognised by the Scottish Government as of national importance. So we like to think of ourselves as a kind of distributed national collection. And there's a few stats on the slide here that I won't read out in detail, because I think the important thing for today is that we're also a very diverse group of museums. We have very large member museums like the Hunterian. We have very small member museums that are maybe 1 person with a very small budget. And we have different positions within our universities. So we work really collaboratively together. We have a joint grant that helps to some degree support our work. And we're incredibly lucky, particularly at the moment, because we've been able to get funding for a coordinator who's been able to really help us through the current crisis by sharing information and advocating for Scottish university museums. So if we can get the second slide, Neil will tell you a little bit about what we're currently doing in relation to teaching and learning.
Yes, I mean, I was facing, as we went into shutdown, quite a sudden change that we were teaching courses which had students doing an exhibition, running a family event, work placement, so quite a sudden change. And in a way, there's that sort of shift from the panic horror, oh dear, I've got to sort this out, to realising that some of those things were actually wonderful opportunities. So now with a wee bit of reflection, we're looking, back and forwards. And so these are, I think, the key themes that are coming out. You can see some general points that we're all doing, and then there's some specific examples from 4 of the institutions. I'm not going to read all those examples out. You can, see them on the screen. But I'd highlight there's the whole issue of increasing digitization. I mean, it's something we've been doing for years, but thinking of 2D and 3D, and thinking particularly of them being used for teaching rather than just for general value or for research. Delivering teaching and learning, we're now talking a lot about the idea of blended learning. I don't think any of us actually know what blended learning means yet. We're using the word very freely. And I think it's trying to think of how you combine the real contact with people and objects in museums with what you do online. And that may be planned, but it may, as Marta was just saying, may suddenly be unplanned. So we're trying to think how you best use those 2 things together usefully rather than just as a panic measure. We're also, this is something that I think the Scottish Government's very keen on and something we've been talking about for a while and are very conscious of during the pandemic, is not just about learning, it's also about people's well-being. And so there's a very important role for museums, and particularly university museums with our students, in thinking about the well-being of the students and their general experience, how they feel part of a learning community when they're all sitting isolated in different rooms in different countries even. So that's become something we've got a real focus on. And that's linked to increasing use of social media that is obviously something that most students are very comfortable with. It's something that I think we've all found we've been able to use, and certainly in Aberdeen we've found a dramatic increase in Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, the number of people engaging, sharing, commenting. And so it's partly marketing, but it's also building that sense of community and togetherness that is so important. So I'll pass back to Katie for the final slide.
Yeah, and I think we all noted between the university museums in Scotland a really big increase during the lockdown period in people engaging with us online. So I think that feels to us really positive. One thing that we wanted to bring out just to finish with is that, like a lot of museums, and certainly like a lot of the universities and educational institutions in Scotland, we found we're working much more closely together during this period, really collaborating and supporting each other. It's not really the way in Scotland, but it particularly hasn't been the case at the moment, that there could have been really big competition, but there really hasn't been. We've supported each other. And in the University Museums in Scotland group, we're all doing our own projects. There's a couple of quite big areas where we're working very closely together. So we're doing an Arts Award project, which is bringing together young people from different areas of Scotland to document and explore life in their communities. And that's particularly important because these are sometimes students in disadvantaged areas who might not necessarily think they want a university education, or they might not quite be sure what their path might look like. So it's part of what is termed in the UK widening participation in universities. And there's a sense already that this area of universities, the kind of diversifying of people who come to university, might be negatively impacted by the crisis. So we've chosen to go early and active to try and support young people in this area. There's another project that I'd hoped to be able to tell you today we were going to be starting, because we were expecting to hear about a grant application this week. And we may yet still hear that we've got it. It's silence is not bad news. That is a project that we've proposed, which would pool information and feedback on teaching and learning with digitized collections. Because we're all learning as we go, we're all innovating, and we're all delivering a lot of this blended teaching that Neil was just talking about. But we want to see if we can develop a better sense of what really works and how this can be a rich and impactful experience for our students. So keep your fingers crossed for us. We'll let you know as soon as we hear, but if we get that funding, it will be a really exciting project. If we don't get the funding, we will probably, to a more limited extent, still do this, because I think we all feel that it's important to learn from each other and share what we're learning as we do this. The last point here is we're also, within the University Museums Group, developing a joint strategic plan and looking at some future funding proposals. We very much have worked together and have a sense of where we're stronger as a group and where we're stronger as a group of individuals. So you can keep in touch with us on our social media. There's all this stuff on the screen here. Obviously, when we get into the questions, Neil and I are very happy to answer stuff. We might know less about other university museums than we know about our own, but hopefully this gives you a sense of the whole of the University Museums Network in Scotland.
The sound, Kirsten.
So, sorry, thank you very much. It seems like you really worked out a strategy to work closer together. So this is a really great experience for you, maybe. I think this is wonderful, especially because we all know that universities can be very competitive among each other. So that's a very good thing. I would like to ask a question as for this blended learning. Can you give sort of a really short or a quick example for what this actually means?
I'll say something. I say the question really is we don't know what it means. It's okay. The underlying, and to be slightly cynical about it, the aim of universities is to get students to sign up and pay their fees. So what universities are advertising is that they will be providing this sense of community, the teaching will be taking place on campus, that people will actually come to the city and be real students. At the same time, realizing that with social distancing, if currently we've all got to stay 2 meters apart from each other, then there isn't space on campus. there are health and safety risks about having people coming onto campus. So the basic model that we're working with is that lectures, the conventional lecture will probably be recorded and will be available online for students to look at whenever suits them as asynchronous. And then there will be synchronous meetings, some of which will take place on campus in rooms with real people, and some of which will take online through virtual learning environments. And so this blending of the online and the in-person, I think that sort of captures where it's at.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll perhaps just add from St Andrews, we talk a lot. Is everything okay with the sound?
Yeah.
Okay. So from St Andrews, the way we talk about it is around dual delivery, which is being able to have in-person experiences and online experiences. And we've been talking a lot about a parity between those two, so that it's not one is a sort of poor substitute for the other, but they're developed to work together, to go hand in hand with each other, and to be really kind of not parallel delivery separated from each other, but really that you can move between the two as you need to, depending on what happens. And that is an interesting challenge for collections-based teaching and learning, because the one you can hold it in your hand, the other you can't. So how do you create a parity of experience between in-person and online when you're dealing with objects? That's the challenge we're facing at the moment.
No, this is very interesting. We decided actually to teach a class next semester exactly the same way, but it was, well, I felt it was more sort of a, necessary thing to do, but it seems like you really worked out a way of really doing this in a proper way, in terms of not being one the substitute of the other, but really have two different things next to each other, complementing each other, which is very, very good.
Yeah,
very
I would just to add to that, I think we're trying to, I wouldn't say that we had succeeded at all.
Well, it's always good to be modest in this, but.
But I think one wee example that we're working on for next term is that there's one of the courses we're involved with where students research a particular object. And in the past, they've been able to come into the museum and look at the object and handle it and look at the associated archive, the catalogue records, the associated files, the paperwork. Now, that's been tremendous. On the other hand, they're only able to come in for an hour or 2 hours, whereas by doing it online, they'll be able to do it at home and look at those archives, those records, whenever they want, for as long as they want. So that's the sort of example that they're different experiences. I'm not sure which is better or worse. So if ideally, we're able to have a short physical session plus the online would be even better.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Are there any more questions for Neil and Katie? Anybody? We're a small group, so we can, I see you all. Okay. Yes?
In which case, I'm just going to quite quickly plug something, and I'll put it on the chat. The students we had, the exhibition they were working on, amazingly, back in November, December, they chose the topic safekeeping and protection from danger. And they did this by going into the store and exploring and have a sort of brainstorming session. And suddenly this became a really important issue. And it was fascinating the way that they were thinking. On the one hand, we've turned this into a virtual exhibition, and I'll give the link in the chat. On the other hand, they actually didn't want to make it a COVID exhibition. They wanted to think about the rest of life and make it something that the world is not just COVID. So it was very interesting seeing them negotiating the social stresses and their own personal stresses, along with the turning something online that would be visited by many more people. And so like the opening event, these are international students, they were able to put on an opening event which had people joining like this from all over the world, which would never have been possible if it had only been in Aberdeen. So I'll put up the link to the exhibition so you can have a look, but enjoy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So, so we have actually a lot of on the pro side coming up here, I think. So now we have our next speaker, which is Luz Miriam Gomez Pineres, right?
Okay, you have the slides presentation,
I think
please.
Marta is working on it. Yeah, okay.
Okay. This is the second one. I need the first one, please. Yes, okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Luz Miriam Gomez. I want to thanks to UMAC for allowing us this space. I represent the Colección Entomológica del Tecnológico de Antioquia. We belong to a public institution that houses a community of approximately 15,000 students. It is located in Medellin. That is the second one city most populous in Colombia after the country's capital. The collection made part of the research group Bioforensic. We focus on studying forensic importance flies, Mucidae, Sarcophagidae, Fanidae, and Califoridae. We are a joint entomology collection, and because we are founded in 2010, we register our data fields and data identifications using a specified platform. And we work with taxonomy, classical morphology, geometric morphometry, and molecular markers, as well as breeding, flies breeding and ecological niche models. Next, please. We have 89,100 samples in adult stage, and from most of the biogeographic regions of our country, and some specimens from Brazil, Ecuador, Mexico, and Denmark, making us one of the most representative collection of flies of forensic importance in Colombia. Also, we have sequences of CO1 on seed bee genes, and we mount for morphometric studies. We want to include information derived from PCR real time. We belong to the Faculty of Law and Forensic Science, and 3-hour program have courses on entomology, forensic entomology, forensic biology. And we use the collection for teaching. Also, we have undergraduate, master, and doctorate projects, and hotbeds of research that is a space for a student to learn about the research process, for which we use insects as learning models. For the institution, the health emergency was really a surprise. We were not prepared, despite the news of the crisis in Asia and Europe, but we are skeptical of the reality. When the national government ordered quarantine, we made a break in classes for about 3 weeks. This time was used for began to see options to use virtual tools for teaching. Next, please. Okay, in mid-April, we reassumed classes virtually. We use platforms like Zoom, Teams, Google Meets, and Renata. That is a Colombian virtual network. One of the most significant challenges was procuring that the students community will have connectivity, because our students population is mostly low income and has limitation in accessing a computer or internet. Another challenge was that we, as a teacher, incorporate virtual tools into teaching methods. To continue with taxonomy identification, we have to take the stereoscope home, and molecular work has to stop. In entomology classes, teachers create specific guides for laboratories and practices. And we use resources as for taxonomy, for learning about flies taxonomy. Okay, like the organizations as a Zero. We create video content on YouTube, and the exams was proposed as a trivia games on quiz.com. All this experience was experimentation that lets us some messages on how we are going to make quality in virtual classes. What tools can we implement with laboratories and practices? How to manage time and assigning work, because the work was increased as well to the teacher as a students. Conjuncturally, last year, we presented an internal project to improve the systematization of our collection, the group website, and the started first stage for establish a virtual collection museum, for which we also looking for external sources of financing. And I think that if we can, this website will be a tool that can help us a lot for teaching online and for people in general to access all our information. It is crucial to create these own sources and to carry out networks that allow information exchange. Okay, this is what I wanted to share today.
Thank you very much, Luz. Well, that was very interesting. I had no idea that you can actually really use so many digital tools in laboratory practice, which is amazing. Thank you. Very impressive. Are there any questions for Luz?
I put one in chat. Which
Okay.
is, I didn't understand. Did the students identify, you said that they sometimes had to take the microscope home. Did they do that? Did they actually take the microscope home? Could they do that? No.
For the, we carry out the microscope home, but only for researchers or a student like have a specific project. Right. For a student, for the general classes, they have to use virtual facilities. For example, like a Zero.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And did they identify the specimens of the collection? Did they use the specimens of your collection of the institute?
Yes.
Or did they collect themselves?
No, we use. Please let me know about the question again.
Did they collect? Did they? Okay, you have to identify flies. So go out to the field and collect. That's one idea. The other idea was to identify based on images of your collection. How was it done?
Okay, no, we made the two things. We go to the field and we use the specimen from the collection. But for example, in this moment, we think that we have to improve the virtual or digitalization of our samples because we are not prepared, and was for us a challenge to manage this because they are so small. They have many things that we had to look at, and it's difficult if we have the tools for see the insect at home. So we need a stereoscope because if no, we have no working with the samples.
Okay, thank you very much.
And you are welcome.
Maybe just one more quick question, since we're not so many people, maybe I can ask one question. I was wondering, so you said you're using, I mean, this is just sort of a tryout, and you will be using this, all those tools you created now for other things as well, so for outreach and for engaging with other people, not only for teaching. This was part of the idea, right?
Yes, in this moment we are trying to find financial resource for digitalization and for made, for example, no say, videos, and make a page in internet for exchange information. and give information from our projects that will be public.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, then we move on to our next speaker, Carlos Fernandez from the Faraday Museum at Technical University of Lisbon.
While I prepare the PDF, let me just say that you have a student in the audience, Kirsten.
I do?
You do. It's Gilbert Nicolas from Lebanon, and he actually already shared in the chat how difficult it was for him to, so it will be nice later on to.
Yes. Yes. I will ask him about.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, may I begin?
Wait. Here we go.
Okay, I'm Carlos Fernandes, and I'm currently one of the directors of Faraday Museum in Instituto Superior Técnico, University of Lisboa. So, Faraday Museum has more than 800 pieces already identified and cataloged. These pieces covers the areas of electrical engineering, instrumentation, audio, video, radio, and TV. Its collections, devices, patrimony, and all kinds of documents constitute an important part of the school's collective memory. So, may I, Marta, the first slides, first slide, the next slide. Okay. I organized this presentation by answering to the questions. So you have the question there. For the answer, I would say that before lockdown, the museum collection has been used for in-person teaching in undergraduate programs of the first cycle and for blended teaching in master programs of the second cycle. They are referred in this slide. You can see that I choose examples of collaboration between different departments of this school, Instituto Superior Técnico, or between different schools of University of Lisbon. There are 18 faculties in this university. Next, please. So the answer for that question. After lockdown, which means after the 10th of March of this year, all the courses in the University of Lisbon became online. We are speaking of around 50,000 students, 4,000 teachers, and more than 400 evaluated courses. From this date on, the teaching actions had a dramatic reduction in Faraday Museum. In fact, we are a very small museum and a very recent museum. So we have only 3 years, so no much experience. So from this, we are a small space in the school, and the rules of confinement relating to space. So I think it's 2 meters of social distance, and the situation that currently occurs in Lisbon. So since this week, no more than 10 persons are allowed to be together. So we are obliged to maintain online teaching actions that are only associated with the follow-up of master's dissertations. So currently, we have 3 master theses that are underway in the area of augmented reality. The online activities correspond to give support to the students in the development of software tools. So we provide specific theoretical texts, we prepare video, and we recreate situations concerning 3 pieces of Faraday Museum collections. You can see there the Gower Bell's telephone, the Graham dynamo, and in your right, the cathode ray tube. So taking advantage, if we can say so, of this phase that we are all living, the museum team is developing online material for the deconfinement phase, which is expected to happen next September in the opening of the new school year. So please, next. So for the answer of this very complex question. So in all domains, the digital learning and teaching has increased. For the users, digital learning is referred as leading to more technological literacy, more confidence using new technologies, self-discipline, self-motivation, and often organizational habits. But our pedagogical experience says that the digital and in-person will parallel complement one another. So hybrid, blended learning is our suggestion for a museological space like Faraday Museum with a return to normality. So being experimental is a question of attitudes. So be creative, what I can say for the future. Be creative when looking to an object of your collection and ask yourself, what can we do with this? In fact, the objects continue to tell stories of science, technology, or whatever, but they also tell stories of the present. So reinvent, doing something like smoothing the boundaries between historical and contemporary. So the experience during the lockdown has demonstrated that digital, more than to inform, is more and more used as a means of sharing. So in order to prepare the future, we are now making, so in Faraday Museum, we are making texts concerning one object or group of objects of our collection that we intend to share online. So something like the object of the month. So using, so this is our idea, using digital to motivate future visits to the Faraday Museum. So this is our proposal. So it's something blended. So digital to attain in person. So transform the museum in a laboratory museum, because doing is understanding. Making the user to feel the object. The formula may be this: more than to be touched is to be touched, than touch, sorry, is to be touched by the object. So this is our proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Well, I do have a question for you. Well, obviously it seems like that the digital and the in-person, so the merge of these two, is blended learning, seems to be the way to go right now, or it seems to be one solution for our collections as well as for the digital learning. I was just wondering, like from your first, you said at the beginning you work with other departments as well. So do you think that the digitalization would promote something like interdisciplinary work? Do you think interdisciplinary work would work better digital than it would be normally?
Sorry, you asked if, can you repeat some interdisciplinarity?
Yeah, so work in between different fields or work within different fields. Do you think it would be something that would be easier now?
Yes, it's, I think, now at the moment, or for the future, for the deconfinement, after the deconfinement? I didn't understand. For the moment?
Well, actually for both in a way, but also for the future, because maybe the digital world can make things like that easier, maybe.
Yes, I think first it is important to make this kind of actions, because if not, we are very much isolated. So I'm speaking about our situation in Instituto Superior Técnico. It's a very big faculty, but the actions in this university are normally related with teaching and with research, and the museums are very, so this situation to recognize the importance of the patrimony is something very recent. So and I would say that we belong to a family, so we are recognized, in fact. So these three pillars, so teaching, research, and patrimony. But in fact, we are of the same family, but we are the poor, the poor in the three. So, but at the moment we are recognized. This is important. But in fact, every action that is related to money, to go on making things, we have some difficulties, and we share. So, and our poster here that says we are all on, but we are all one. So we can, if we make a link between us and between all of you, because today we are all together, and we can press all the persons that govern us to say that this is important and don't give up. So to show things, to show that we are making things, and these links between faculties in Lisbon is easier than links with other universities in the world. So
Yes.
if we begin here in our house, this may be important to enlarge. So that's why.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Some of the things you said really were done for very good closing remarks. But so we're now, it would now be nice if we would actually talk to the students that we have online. Yes.
Okay. So, hello everyone.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah.
So
Gilbert, you put something on the chat. Of course, I missed that because, but now it would be nice to hear your experiences. Obviously, it's not as easy as one think it is.
Yeah, it wasn't easy because actually, first of all, I'm a museology student. I'm an architect, and I decided to study the space inside the museum. So I had the chance to participate in December in a Universium and UMAC colloquium about the opening the university museums to the public. And from there, I started working on the space, how to open it, how to interact between the visitors and the students and the professors. So it was all my study was about that. And then I had this lockdown. Sorry. Sorry. I had this lockdown, and it wasn't easy because I needed to visit a lot of museums. I did this before last year, but this year it wasn't easy for me. So I needed to feel the space, to feel the collection, to see the objects inside the space, the lighting, to see how the visitors interact with the objects in real interaction, and to see how they can manage to be in a study room with the students and to interact with them, to ask questions. So for me, I couldn't do this to go really actually to the space. And I was starting to question the importance of space after this lockdown. So how we can recreate the space where we can engage people in real engagement with the objects, with each others, how we can manage to do to create study rooms inside an exhibition room and to re-engage this museum inside the university. So for me, I couldn't really be able to go to the university to see the students, to see the spaces. So online, it wasn't really a good experience for me, and I don't know how we can like work on it more to be like more real, and what is the role now of the space, of the scenography, of the museography, of the museum and exhibition space. So this is my modest experience. I don't know if it was clear.
Yes, yes, very much. Well, thank you very much. I think it's very important that you mentioned that the space where people actually meet, has very much big relevance for the work we're doing. Mostly, of course, in museums or in university museums. So and we all miss that. I'm pretty sure. I think. In Germany, most of the museums can open now, of course, with restrictions. So, of course, not as many people can be inside. There's some, hygiene strategy for each and every museum. So there's a way to actually visit the places, but of course, it's different now. But at least they're open, and they're open to the public, and I think. Well, this is something that cannot be replaced, clearly. So
I can say that here in Lebanon, we started opening last week. Not all the museums, and not the university museums. So all the universities are still closed until September. So the universities, the museums also are closed. So
okay.
The public museums are beginning to open, but as you said, there is not like a lot of people. There is not a lot of interaction as we used to see or we used to study. Yes, so that's it.
Well, thank you. Does anybody want to comment on the problem of the missing museum space? No. Okay, so we have some more minutes left. Maybe that would be nice to have another opinion of somebody who would maybe, I don't know, Anna, maybe you would like to share something?
Yes, but like I tell you the last time, the problem that I notice in these kind of efforts, for example, for me, the online classes, the problem is that I can see the faces of my students because I needed to project my presentation and then I lose their faces. And for me, it's very important to see their faces because I notice when they understood quite well or not, or maybe a comment or something that they said, you notice that they don't understand. The same is in the museum. A comment, a joke, something like this, you notice that they are not understanding deeply the concept. Yes, we have groups, of course, that they visit the museum all the years and spend many hours inside because they visit the museum, and after 3 hours of visit, something more, sometimes more, they remain at the museum and they make an activity all the times. Many of them, they visit us in Saturday morning, and this is not going to be possible at this moment because the spaces that we have in the museum are very, very small. Marta knows quite well. It's an all seismological observatory, very, very narrow.
But the Museo Faraday is even smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
yes, then I noticed that I'm change of mind, and then I think to do activities more on free air areas, more with more air, clean air, because for example, for me, it's very difficult to imagine only 3 persons can get into to see one of the instruments, and then after 15 minutes or more, we have to leave the space, clean the space, and then another 3, and it's going to be very, very difficult. Then we have to think in other spaces to be with more people.
Okay.
But it's the same problem. For example, in the UNAM, all the UNAM is thinking that many of the courses continue online, and only the persons that has to go to the labs are going to be there, but in different times, because we are crowded, really crowded. Okay. For me, I say that if in my course, if I say of 1.5 meters, then only I could have 4 students.
Okay.
And I have 20. Then we are going to remain maybe online until all the next semester, until December or more. And only the persons that has to go to the labs, for example, for me, for my research, we are thinking to go only the days Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings is the only time that I could go to my lab and work there. And this is going to be the same in the university. And we, at this moment, we are close, really close. We have problems with the COVID, the persons that remain at the museum for safety get sick at this moment, and then we are going to remain more time close. And it's not very important for the university that we open or remain closed, because we are out of the campus, and then this is another time to go there and things like this. The visits outside of the campus is going to be not in the plans of the university at this moment. I think we are going to
thank you.
Online.
Thank you very much. We maybe have time for one more. Marta, can we have one more, or do it one more? Okay. So maybe Rose, maybe you would like to. Well,
yeah,
are you there, Rose? T Rose? No, I don't know. Is she there? She's not there. Is she? It would be nice to have sort of the.
Yes, I am here. I was typing it. I was typing a chat. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
And I missed your question. Hello to all.
No, I was just asking you to sort of, as a last person, maybe you can share some of your experiences with us in terms of, online teaching and learning.
I can share what I know that's going on in the museum where I work. In the conservation group, we were caught short. We were to have had a student intern this summer, and we realized we could not adjust to enable a digital one. And so now we're actually in preparation of thinking about how we can do a conservation internship. But I can say that the other members of the academic partnership group at the museum, they have been adapting, and the last 2 months of the spring term, of course, the professors had to quickly jump to doing everything remotely after March 16th. And so that continued, and luckily, the museum had been starting a 3D digitization project. And so I know for the conservators, we had helped a great deal back in 2018 and 19 with some of that work. But what's happening now this summer is that people realize they have to fuel up and there has to be a lot more engagement digitally. And so a lot of effort is going into preparing objects three-dimensionally so that classes can be at the standard that's really required, you know, at the graduate and the undergraduate level. So collections use is going on in a, I don't want to judge, but it seems like it's got to be bolstered. It's happening to some degree. And so there have been, like, there was a summer internship program at the museum, but it happened remotely. And the 3 students did engage with 2 of the academic partnership staff members and were able to utilize some of the collections, but they decided to focus on creating these teaching guides to support the professors come the fall term. So I don't know if there's more I can say, but yeah, we're all in the same boat, I think, trying to experiment and.
Yes.
But conservation must be really hard because it's about practices and skills, right? So you really, unless you're going to restore, I don't know, the furniture that the students have at home or something, how do they practice? You know, how can they really practice, right?
Yeah, so we need to have very good webcams and, you know, focused imagery. And sadly, we didn't have that kind of thing, but we're not going to be thinking about that, I think, because I think this remote reality may be with us more than we realize. And I think we can do what people are saying is like a combination. So if we can get back by next year, I think that we might be able to have an in-person intern in our lab, but for now it's not known. But yeah, we have a lot of creative work to do, and I think we can, you know, starting it, the planning.
Blending is definitely the word of the afternoon or the morning or the evening. Fantastic.
Yes, it very much. Yes, it very much is. This is basically what everybody's trying to do, and I think it's interesting that everybody's talking about experimenting with it. But it seems like many things have already been worked out really well, and also it seems like something I was kind of afraid of, that the collections is sort of wandering out of the, you know, museums and out of the collections because everybody thinks now we have to be all digital and nothing else is going to be left. This is obviously for none of you the case. Instead, everybody sort of tries to develop new strategies for this situation. And of course, there has been many universities, I mean, there's probably here the same as anywhere else, is really, really pushing a lot of effort into those new strategies. And there will be, I'm sure we will be seeing a lot more of this. And I would say, I mean, also our work, which is very much object-based and and for all of us, it's very important to actually do that kind of work with the objects. It still seems that we will all have to get used to the digital world a lot more and get more practice, get more, well, knowledge, and basically also develop new project with that. And it was really nice to see how it actually works out already in Scotland, working together, you know, with all the other universities. It was really a good example for how this whole really difficult situation can also foster something really good and something new. And if people start working together because they sort of feel the need, they have to in this situation, this is definitely a good, very, very good thing. Also, I didn't know that the forensic entomology really is something you can do online so well. So this is a surprise for me. I think it's amazing. I think it's fantastic. Yes, so I guess to sum it up, I think we will all have to think of new ways of putting our collections online, of do more teaching and do more work online. Nevertheless, the contact to people, the spaces, the work with the collections remain as relevant as it has been before, I would say, or even more important right now. So yeah, in that respect, it was really nice to see you all in person, even just online, but whatever. And I really, really hope so. You're all going to be in Germany next year, all of you, of course, for the conference, we will hopefully do, really physical and physical spaces with real people. I hope so. Yeah. We don't know yet, but it's going to happen.
No, we don't. But thank you so much, Kirsten. Thank you all, those attending, here, participating, very live chat with lots of information and also provocations. And certainly, if there's one thing that I think that maybe will happen, is that there will be probably more money for museums for digitization, because the cultural sector, museums in general, not only university museums. In fact, I think that university museums were probably ahead in the infrastructure, platforms, technologies, and so on than other museums. But still, I think there will be some calls in Europe, namely for extra money for catching up, adapting to the new situation. And I wish the best for Scotland, because they have several grants going on. I wish you receive all the money you want and need and deserve, and everyone. Okay, thank you so much. And don't forget to plug in next week, because it's going to be our last seminar, webinar. It's gonna be of this series. We've been having a lot of demand to continue to do other topics. There were many topics that were raised during these 5 weeks. So it's gonna be about the future, about the near future, moderated in the Asian slot by David Ellis from Australia, and in this afternoon slot by Steph Scholten. Another Scot. No, it's not. Is it that? But he works in a Scottish museum. But anyway, it was a pleasure as always. Thank you so much. And yeah, stay attentive and stay together, because that's what really brought us, what the COVID brought us, is that we really need to stay together and do more things together. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.